Now this is a very interesting .NET interview question. What is the use of private constructor? Now this question is mainly asked from the perspective that you understand the importance and the use of private constructor in a class. Now before I go ahead and I talk about this question, there are two important points to be noted about private constructor. The first thing is that a class with a private constructor cannot be inherited. In other words, if you have a class with a private constructor, you cannot inherit it. And second, you cannot create an object of the class which has a private constructor. So in order to understand the 2 points which we discussed previously, let's create a simple class here called as class 1, and let's create a private constructor in this. So you can see that I have created a private constructor for the class 1. Now let's try the first thing. We'll try to inherit this class 1 class. So let me go and create a class 2 class here, and this class 2 is inheriting from class 1. Now if you try to compile this, if I go and hit the build solution, you can see that it's showing me an error stating that basically the class 1 is inaccessible due to the protection level. Why? Because the constructor is private. Great. Now let's try the second thing which we discussed. Let's try to create the object of class 1. So you can see that I am trying to create the object of class 1. Now let's go and hit build again. So we can see 2 errors now. The first error points towards the first thing, that is you cannot create an object of class 1. Why? Because the constructor is private. And the second thing you can see, which we had already talked about, that you cannot inherit the class 1. So now the next question which will be coming from the interviewer definitely is that what's the use of such class which cannot be inherited and which cannot be instantiated. Now many times what happens is projects have utility classes, helper classes, and these classes are called again and again, and many times you don't want to create instances of these classes, but rather you would like to have one instance of the class and you would like to call that object again and again. So for example, now you can see that here is a class 1 and it has a private constructor, and I have made a simple static function here called as get data. Now anybody who calls this get data, he will return up a hello kind of a string. Okay, now you can see over here, this is an important code, that this class 1 I am calling without using the new keyword. So there is already one instance of the object, and basically I am just calling the get data function, and he is just returning me back the hello world, hello string. So in other words, in projects, especially classes which are utility classes, helper classes, common functions, you would like those classes to be, you would like to call the functions and methods of those classes directly, rather than creating a new instance of the object. So above are the 3 important points which the interviewer is expecting. First, when you declare a constructor as private, you cannot inherit the class, neither you can create an object of the class. And the third point which he is expecting is in which conditions you will use the private constructor. So the private constructor will be used when you do not want to create instances of certain classes. For example, classes which are having common utilities and common functions, like central classes, or classes which are used across the project. So for common routines and utility functions and helper functions, you would like to create one instance of the object by using the static keyword and not use the new keyword to create the instance again and again. Now for further references, what we would also suggest is do go and see the videos from object-oriented programming question and answer section, because when these kind of question comes up, must be the subsequent questions can be about classes, interfaces, about inheritance, polymorphism, etc. So what we would suggest is log on to your Questpon video account and scroll below, and you will find that there is a Q&A for the OOPS question and answer video series. So you can see that basically here there are some other questions which were covered in depth with source code. So like, what are classes, what is inheritance, how can we achieve polymorphism, how can we achieve encapsulation, and difference between encapsulation, abstraction, when to use an interface, when to use abstract class, etc. So because this question which we discussed for now belongs to the object-oriented programming section, so must be that after this question the interviewer can ask you questions which are related to OOPS. So do go and see this video series which are more in depth, so that you can answer the questions in a much better manner.